MIDDLEKAUFF, baby, hey! What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition. I'm Guy, that's John. It's Haberman of MIDDLEKAUFF. We are live on YouTube where you can watch us after the fact as well. If you're watching us live, great to have you. Hit that like button. We appreciate that. That helps out the channel. Hit the subscribe button. We appreciate that. That helps grow the channel. Tell a friend, tell an enemy, as John likes to say. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, you have no idea how much you matter. Thank you for downloading, subscribing. Hit us with a 5-star review. We really appreciate that on Apple Podcasts. Ask a question in your review. That's how you get in the ham mailbag.
We love you guys, man. Love you. Love you guys.
As we record this, we are watching baseball. We've got NBA opening night on Tuesday night. Jim Irsay is trying to fire Dan Snyder. And I don't know. The Niners are just trying to get through a Tuesday without another injury. So a lot going on today.
All rise, baby.
Eric on the stream says, breaking news, MIDDLEKAUFF has located his hat. Yeah, you finally got some of your melon hats.
Do you know what the Fresno State football should do? Is just have an Aaron Judge day, but for the football game, like have him at halftime.
Great idea.
Like in a November game next year, like I would just have Aaron Judge night.
Yeah, why not? And him and number 99, David Perales.
I think they did Paul George night a couple years ago. You'd be stupid not to. Play the hits.
9-9. Just bring Aaron Judge out in the whole football uniform. See if you can throw him a pass in the red zone.
Yeah.
Did you see a video somebody posted during Monday Night Football of Justin Herbert kicking field goals in high school?
No, were they deep?
It was like, crappy video because it's high school and it's somebody filming from the field. And you see the guy, you see the line, and it's like a 15-yard field goal attempt. And then the ball just rockets way past the uprights. Like it was more than enough leg. But they didn't need that on Monday night, I guess.
Like an Andy Reid punt, pass, and kick. But I guess
exactly.
he would have been like 16, 17. He's from Eugene, right?
He's from Eugene, yeah. Yeah. Andy Reid punt, pass, and kick.
Think about this guy. Helfrich technically signed him, correct? Mario inherited.
I think Arroyo. No, yeah.
But I mean, Helfrich would have been the head coach.
Yeah.
So mainly in his career, his best coach by far, at least in terms of accomplishments, would be Mario Cristobal, who fantastic.
Really? I mean, Helfrich had been to the playoff.
Okay, so Mark Helfrich, who can't get a job. Mario, who's known as a recruiter, not an offensive genius. Anthony Lynn. And then Brandon Staley. It's not, he's not on the Jimmy G, Mac Jones, Nick Saban, Belichick, Kyle. And we can question Kyle. We'll dive into that a little later. But
yeah, well, yeah, we will get into that. By the way, before we go any further, I mean, yesterday, Monday Night Football was October 18th. Today's October 8th. Or I guess Monday Night Football was the 17th. Today's the 18th. We might have a tweet of the year winner.
I got a lot of retweets.
Well, this is as of several hours ago. It had basically 5,500 likes and 631 retweets. You want to make a one sheet to talk about social impressions on Twitter? Bronco, for those of you who didn't see it, Broncos defense calling a team-only meeting, but only inviting Russ. And then it's just a photo from, what is that, Goodfellas, when they bring Joe Pesci in to kill him. Does he think he's about to get made in that scene?
I think he does, yeah.
That was
the thing with mob movies, and I don't know, and I'm a sucker for mob stuff. People that are doing the killing never look like SEAL Team 6 members. I mean, look at these two guys. Like in my mind, it's just like some fat guy now, and he's got a little revolver and he shoots you in the head. But he's never like, if he had to run or climb out of there, like that's not on the table.
No. Yeah. Well, there is a scene in one of the I don't remember which season of The Sopranos where they beat a guy, they put him in the trunk.
Yeah, they get lost in the woods.
They get lost, and the running is too much for them. The shooting while running is an impossibility. It's very inaccurate. Yeah, you're right. They are. Think
about the two people, guy. It's Chrissy, who's a drug addict, and Polly Walnuts, who's old.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Yeah. R.I.P. Real life. And I saw Chrissy's in some new, I think season 2 of White Lotus. I've never watched the show, but I just saw a promo for it yesterday.
Well, White Lotus is a good watch, guys.
Is it? Well, it looks like there's a bunch of people in season 2, and he's one of them, I think, from what I saw in the preview. John, we are sponsored by Tito's Handmade Vodka. We love it. It is number one. You love it. Mike Pereira loves it. Who doesn't love Tito's Handmade Vodka? It is America's original craft vodka. In 95, Tito Beverage, the man himself, built his very own distillery. He went all in, put his life savings into it, and then he just started winning. And he hasn't stopped winning since. Unanimous judges' choice double gold medals at the World Spirits Competition, the Chairman's Trophy for the world's best vodka tonic, many others. And, well, it's the official drink of ham, so that's an award right there.
Yeah, I think the Guardians are going to need some Tito's and sodas after they get their ass kicked by the Yankees. And I bet Lincoln Riley had a few Tito's and sodas on his flight home from Salt Lake City after losing to the Utah Utes.
Kyle Whittingham might have had some victorious.
With an NFL executive years ago after a massive win, they were hopping on a private jet. They're like, we're about to crack open the vodka and enjoy ourselves on the flight home. They were drinking Tito's. Everyone's drinking Tito's. If you're not, go buy yourself a bottle of Tito's, share it with your friends, have some cocktails, have a good time.
And send us a photo of it.
Yep.
I'm partial to the Tito's and ginger beer, maybe the Tito's and Arnold Palmer. You turn it into a John Daly. That's a great one. We always I find that we get people photos of John Daly's on golf courses on Mondays a lot. So shout out to all our listeners who are golfing on Mondays. And you can go check out some more recipes if you want to mix it up. Some great Halloween themed drinks. You got people coming over for the holidays.
You know what an Old Faithful is that I feel has been lost in the shuffle as in modern times is the screwdriver. Just orange juice and a little vodka. Very, very simple. I just don't see that like in the mix as much anymore. I don't know, but
in a bottle of Crystal Geyser.
Yeah, that's easy way to get into a football game, high school football. No, you got to be over 21.
Learn more. Tito'sVodka.com, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas, 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. We are also brought to you today by DraftKings. DraftKings, baby. DraftKings Sportsbook. Basketball is back. Tip the NBA season with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can make any $5 NBA moneyline bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Use the code HAM when you sign up.
Yep, do it now. Check this out, guy. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost the winning 100% with DraftKings stepped up same-game parlays. Same-game parlays. How about this? Over tonight, Steph Curry. Over tonight, Jordan Poole, the third splash bro, and the Warriors to cover. If I look up tonight, stop paying attention like the third quarter because they're up like 40. I would guess the Warriors win this game by 25 points, 25 plus.
I like the Warriors a lot.
I can envision Russell Westbrook getting run, tossed. Love a good same-game parlay with some overs on point totals from the Splash Bros. Pick 2 of the 3. I mean, you could add Clay in there if you want.
Well, I think Clay is going to have a great year, but one thing that Steve Kerr has said is that people are still playing their way into shape. So I don't know that we're going to get like all of Clay Thompson's minutes.
He did Instagram the Mamba mentality stuff.
Okay, well,
that's Kobe signed a book and just his signature, his statement to him was just rings.
Well, that's worth something.
Yeah. So here, guy, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code HAM. Make any $5 bet this week and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with the promo code HAM. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
There you go. There you go. I think people don't. I say people. Let me just put into context how incredible the Steph Curry era has been for the Warriors. When Steph Curry came to the Warriors, they were a joke of a franchise. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. The Warriors are now third all-time in NBA championships behind the Lakers and the Celtics. Think about that. More titles than the Spurs, more titles than the Bulls. The Warriors have 7. More titles than the 76ers, the Pistons, obviously like the Pacers, the Rockets. Third. Lakers have 17, Celtics have 17. The Warriors are third.
Do you expect them to win this group's fifth this year?
Expect is hard, but if you're asking me to pick a team to win the championship, I would pick them to repeat. Yes.
Yeah. I would pick them. I think whoever comes out of the East can be a mother. Whether it's Milwaukee or, I think I would definitely pick them to win the West.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Brooklyn. Who do you think is coming out of the East?
You think those guys are going to stay together this year?
I think they'll figure it out, yeah. Not figure it out, but yes.
If you could sign up for a series, would it be Brooklyn Golden State?
Without question.
I'm in. I feel like they have a chance to be like 35-52 or something.
Does that get you in, you think?
Not in the. Well, I guess they added the play-in. Do you think the Kings are going to get a lot of play-in Kings buzz?
John, I think we're going on 12 years in a row that there's a lot of preseason buzz for the Kings. So, yeah, maybe this is the year.
Well, do you see with the Phillies making the playoffs for the first time in 10 years, the Kings now are the longest running. Maybe they already were because the Kings have been longer than that. But
the Mariners made it, and it had been 21 years. Was that part
okay?
Of the...
Oh, yeah, that's what it was. The Mariners did it, and then the Phillies were on the list too. They're off the list. So I think the Kings are just by themselves in the group.
The Phillies were much shorter. The Phillies
were 2010.
The Kings have made the championship. I mean, had made the postseason since the Phillies had made the postseason?
No, because the Kings hadn't made it before 2010, right? They were like 07.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So the Kings were longer than the Phillies anyway.
Maybe it was the Phillies right behind the Kings, and now the Phillies are good.
Yeah. But the Mariners for sure.
Yeah, Mariners were one. They're good. Shit, I mean, even Lions made it like a couple times over the last decade. Shit, the Raiders. Can't make the playoffs. More than half the teams make the playoffs in the league. Yeah, I like the Warriors.
Yeah, okay. We both like the Warriors. Let's talk about a guy that's been a big talking point here in the last few days, and that's Kyle Shanahan. And there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of theories. I don't know if you saw Tim Kawakami's theory, John. Did you see Tim's theory?
Lifetime record now, if you factor in playoffs, is under 500.
Kyle's record under 500, yeah. He has been to, I mean, I do think it's fair when someone brings it up to say he's been to 2 conference championship games and a Super Bowl.
I think it's a lot easier to argue. Like, you remember Andy Reid, couldn't get over the hump. It was yeah, he had a winning record and he had all those NFC championships.
Sure.
Kyle's is well, what about the 3 years where you're really shitty? We're what about the 2 years when he's making runs?
Yeah.
What about his overall record? It'd be nice if he was yeah, he's 20 games over 500, got some flaws, hasn't won a Super Bowl. If you are anti-Kyle, you do feel pretty good about the land you stand on, right?
Sure. Yeah, I think, but I also think the counter is stronger than his record looks on paper based on
4 playoff wins,
the heights that he's been to. I do think it's a fair argument, and I do think I do think the counter is also fair. I did that, but Kawakami had a theory.
I did not.
Yeah, so Kawakami had a theory that I'm not saying this is the way to go. Declining to get as many offensive plays in as possible when you're down 14 points, and that severely reduced the Niners' chance to win the game.
We saw.
But also, by playing it slow and eating up that much clock, Shanahan essentially deleted maybe 8 to 10 plays from the game, which also reduced their chances of incurring more injuries, especially on defense. What do you think of that theory? Because I have a theory off of this theory.
Did you see the Packers game the other day when Jordan Love came in and they were down, I think, 17 points late in the game? And I text someone, did Rodgers get hurt or they didn't bench him? And someone immediately texted me back that's watching the Packer game. They waved the white flag.
Yeah.
Right. And I think
I was not still watching at that point, but
you see the white flag waved a lot in NBA. You see it, half the games in the NBA
for tip off.
Yeah, the white flag is raised. But legitimate games, right, in the fourth quarter where the backups just stay in. In football, 14 points, 10 minutes left, that's pretty fucking insane. I'm not saying I don't mind a good theory, and I don't mind you add up the variables. That would be crazy if he's thinking like that because you have a chance to win in the NFL. All you are is wouldn't the Monday Night Football game be a perfect example? You're a muffed punt away from just a fumble, a bad snap. You see it, college football, and honestly, the pros, weird shit happens all the time. It's why even when you're sitting there on the couch going, they're going to lose the Falcons, if you score one touchdown and get within one score within 6-7 minutes, you do have a very, very good chance of being in position to not only win the game, but just you are very much alive.
Yeah, I agree. And I've got a theory I want to bounce off you. I know you love a good theory.
Because you aren't even close to the line of like, I'm 2 scores and I got to do an onside kick. That's, to me, a pretty big stretch.
Right.
But Kyle, 10 minutes left, 14 points.
Well, here, let me get to my theory for you, and you tell me what you think. Before I do that, though,
do you think that crossed his mind on that drive when it starts?
I think it crossed. What did cross his mind?
Injuries. Like I'm conserving injuries.
Yes, but not in the way Tim described. So let me give you my theory. So before I give you my theory, here is what happened, right? Because there's an ongoing conversation about whether he hurried enough. Well, here are, and I'll read them for those listening. The amount of time on the play clock when the game clock was running at the snap of the ball. And what we'll find is that the Niners only snapped the ball in the fourth quarter with 20 or more seconds on the play clock. Actually, we'll call it 17 or more seconds on the play clock. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. Most of those were on first downs. But I'm going to just rattle off times on the play clock. The Niners get the ball down 2 touchdowns with 10 minutes and 42 seconds left. On the first play of the drive, they snap it with 20 seconds on the play clock.
Good job.
Game clock's not running, so it doesn't really matter. Here we go. 9 seconds, 7 seconds. There was a 6 second, but then the clock got reset right before the snap, so I'll throw that one out. 6 seconds. That's when they hit Ayuk, but there's a penalty. After the penalty, they snap the ball with 4 seconds.
Clock stopped, correct?
On that one, yes. 8 seconds. 24 seconds after a first down. We're at 5:47 now, okay? 2 seconds.
Not good.
Before a 3rd and 12 at the 5-minute mark, Ayuk catches a first down. 25 seconds, bam. It seemed like when the Niners got a first down, they would then try to hurry, which is a thing that teams do. But snap infraction on Brendel, 12 seconds is when they snap it after that penalty. 26 seconds on 2nd and 14, 17 seconds, 27 seconds on 2nd and 1, 9 seconds on 4th and 1.
Well, you notice that stretch of 26, 17, and 27. I mean, the clock is starting to really dip, right? I mean, you're starting to get
dipping. You're
getting close to the 2-minute warning by then.
John, I think it mattered back in the third quarter, at the end of the third quarter, when they got the ball with 2:40 and they snapped it at 6 seconds, 8 seconds, and 9 seconds. Like that was, I think that was a problem because it was clear at the end of the third quarter that it was going to be really hard to have 3 more possessions, which usually you need. If you're down 2 scores, how many possessions do you need to take the lead?
Down how many scores?
You're down 2 scores. You're down 14 points. So how many possessions do you need?
I mean, multiple?
Yeah, you usually would say you need 3. And this is where we get to my theory, which is this. I think Kyle Shanahan was going to go for 2 and not play for overtime. I think he was going to end the game at the end of regulation. He was going to score a touchdown. He was going to kick off. He had all 3 of his timeouts when the Niners failed on that 4th down. He knew what Arthur Smith was going to do because it's what he would do. Arthur Smith was going to run it 3 times. They were going to call all 3 of their timeouts, and they were going to get the ball back pretty quickly, which is actually what ended up happening. Was they called their timeouts, they got the ball back, the Falcons had to punt to them. It just didn't matter because the game was over. But I think Kyle Shanahan was thinking about injuries.
Is that when they went on their field goal drive?
Yeah. But I think Kyle Shanahan was thinking about injuries in the sense that he was not going to play overtime. And I think what he was doing, and maybe he would have liked to have had it quicker. I think you can call different plays and still snap the ball faster. But I think what he was trying to do, and the Niners do everything kind of on these very thin margins. So when it goes bad, it goes really bad, right? Like it's like, I've said this for months now. It's like running the Princeton offense. Like it just has to be really precise. It's like being Virginia basketball with Tony Bennett. Like it has to be really precise. And if it's not working, it could blow up on you. And I think what he was trying to do was take time off the clock, only give Atlanta 1 more possession, get the ball back because he had all 3. He was not using timeouts. Get the ball back from Atlanta with like 2.5 minutes, get down the field, score, go for 2. I think he was going to go for 2 to try and win the game and not go to overtime. That is my theory. I think that's what Kyle Shanahan was thinking. It failed. It did not work. He ended up taking.
You assumed he was going to go for 2 the first go around because that's what the numbers say, or just
no? I think he was going to try and score a touchdown right there, right on that drive that ended up failing on 4th down, score a touchdown, kick the extra point. He still had all 3 timeouts. He knows Arthur Smith's going to run the ball. Arthur Smith is not going to ask Mariota to do anything crazy. Maybe he would have thrown it on 3rd down, maybe, but maybe not. Get it back, score again, and then go for 2. I think that's what Kyle Shanahan was thinking.
If that is truly what he's thinking, that's a little nuts to me. Not the 2-point part, but the bleed the time and play it out perfectly, because I would say the conventional wisdom of any coach, once your back's against the wall in a 4th quarter, is to score as quickly as you can, right? Because it's just hard to score.
Yeah.
And it was hard for the 49ers to score. It's been hard for them to score this year. I saw someone wrote touchdowns in the second half minus the Panther game has not been pretty this year. Like, they have not been some explosive second half offense. But to me, the number one argument just simply goes to basic situational fundamental football. 2 things. You should be able to run your offense, not some breakneck 1-minute offense, right? Kind of, I think it's considered more the 4-minute offense, which is a higher paced, but you still have a little time. 4-minute offense with 10 minutes. You have to huddle every time. No one's expecting, Lincoln Riley, Mike Leach offense. But this is the National Football League. Can you run an offense without kind of consistently huddling, or kind of do some muddle huddle where you can communicate? And I would say when most of your core players, skill guys, have all been together for a while, you should be able to do that, right? I mean, think who's out there. It's guys that have been on the field now for, even Juwan Jennings now, consistently a long time. And then I think the other knock would be, like, you could put it on Jimmy, put it on Kyle. It's probably a combination of them both. The play clock thing is kind of egregious. Because, okay, huddle, but you're fucking in the huddle, be in and out. Like, hey, guy, 1, bang out the call. You should be averaging on that first high teens. I would say 16 to 19 range. Like, I'm not expecting you to get 26 every time if you're going to even do some kind of makeshift huddle. But what's the point of all this practice? This is what I never understood about the NFL. You're spending all this time in the film room, in the meeting rooms, on the field, extra work. Like, I think it's what really bugs. Like, fans ultimately just get mad because how ugly it is at the end. But I think internally why historically you've seen a lot of like front office and coach fights, players turn on coaches, owners turn on coaches and general managers. They go, what are you wasting all this time on? You're spending all this fucking time. You guys, it's pretty well documented. Like, Kyle's there early, stays late. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, this is a pretty basic element of football. You're in a situation where you're down a couple scores late in the game. Like, don't you practice that quote unquote situation? What does every Belichick guy forever say about those 20-year runs? Like, we practice fucking everything. There was no stone left unturned, let alone the basic stuff, right? Must have short yardage, must have 3-minute drives. Like, that feels like a pretty basic scenario. Hey, when you factor in, while there is more time technically on the clock, like you said, the game is played out pretty consistently. That 10 in reality probably is more like 6, 7 based on the time of possession, right? Like, you can't assume you're getting 3 possessions even though there's 10 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah.
So your urgency has to be higher, but they can't really operate unless it's like 1 minute left, just kind of doing the no huddle, pointing the numbers.
Right.
Couldn't they do some like halfway point of that? Maybe not that, but definitely not what they were doing. And then it's on Jimmy and Kyle to like be on the same page. Like, we got to get the ball snapped when there is in the high teens, not at 6, 7, because that's all of a sudden 13 seconds. You're talking about, close to a minute in 4 or 5 plays you're wasting.
Especially once you're 4 minutes into the drive and you still have a lot of drive to go, right? At that point, pick it up. And they did a little. They did pick it up around the 4.5-minute mark after the snap infraction by Brendel. That got snapped to 25. Then they snap at 12, 26, 17, 27. But it's too late. It was late by that point.
Well, what do you think everyone is kind of like the Monday night game truly shitting on those 2 coaches for? Just feels like they're kind of lost, right? When you say Nate Hackett, just like a timeout's needed because my punt team's not on the field.
Right.
I don't know whether to go for it, and I do.
I mean, I know for the Chargers, the way they operated with 2 timeouts, a minute and more than a minute left from their own 25 with one of the strongest arm quarterbacks in the league. I thought that was bad.
Well, there was a moment at the end of the first half. The score, I think, was 10-7. And the Broncos, was it the Broncos? No, it was the Chargers. The Broncos didn't have any timeouts. The Broncos were on defense. There's a minute left. So if you just run the ball, you're going to kick the field goal, which they ended up kicking anyway, at 20 seconds. Instead, they throw a pass. It gets tipped by, Herbert's pass gets tipped. The Broncos end up getting the ball back. A couple plays later, Russ hits a huge play, and they get a field goal out of it because they were given a lot of time. Like just basic, just run the ball. Time management, whether it's running out the clock or whether it's having the composure, understanding, and the urgency to move on both ends of the ledger, right, are really what coaches. I mean, for a long period of time, Andy Reid got destroyed for his clock management at the end of halves and end of games. And whether it's fair or not, like that's just a huge part coaches get knocked on. And I think someone tweeted at you and I today thinking we were being crazy on Kyle for this because, a penalty happened. Like, well, yeah, penalties happen on drives. Like, you don't get an excuse like penalty, set them back. It could have been at the 40. I don't care. Like, I just can watch a team and go, yeah, it feels like maybe they've coached it at practice. But if it's happening at practice and not working in the game, which you would say under Kyle Shanahan, it hasn't really worked in the game, you're not practicing it well enough. And that's your job as a coach to figure out all these situations that you're really shitty at. Like, one thing I know the 49ers don't need to do, 4th and 1. They're going to get it. Why? Jimmy's a great sneaker, right? There are going to be situations like defensively. Clearly,
they should have done it on 3rd and 1.
They should have. But you feel pretty good when they're in that situation. If they want to go to it, they're going to get it. I feel like whatever D'Amico's operating on over there feels like they got most situations pretty well handled. There is a glaring issue with Kyle on the urgency of certain drives, that the way his offense is conducted, and ultimately he's the maestro. He's not the guy playing the fucking flute or the drums. Like, that's ultimately Jimmy leading the charge. But Kyle is in charge of everything. It is not getting – it's not translating, and it hasn't for a while in certain spots, in that spot when they got to go fast. And it gets back to me, the huddle part of his offense. And I think the criticism is like, can Kyle truly, like, if Kyle wasn't allowed, like, no zone runs this week, no zone runs, could you develop a game plan? I think Kyle, I am not someone who's often thinks he should be fired by any means. I think he's a really good coach. But I do think, and I like having a core philosophy, anything in life, things you stand for, morals, in your business, whatever. Like, I do think it's easy to have something to specifically fall back on every time. Pete Carroll changed his career when he went to specific things to fall back on. So I'm cool with it. But like offensive masterminds, like, I do think you got to be open-minded, and you defended, or you brought it up on Sunday that, like, he just can't, he doesn't trust Jimmy, and you understand, and most people do. But I do think you have to just, at times, like, you're going to lose anyway. That's my thing. It's like, it's not like you're going undefeated or winning all these games. You just have to be willing to at least try it. And if it fails, like, you lost by 14 points. But he's never willing to, like, I'm not comfortable doing this. I'm not comfortable doing this. And he won't get out of the comfort zone often. And that, to me, is the one thing as he matures as a play caller, if he's ever going to want to win games like that, because we talked about the stat. That we all are in agreement. That stat is batshit crazy, right?
Oh, for when trailing by 7 going to the 4th quarter. 0 for
25 after the Falcons game. And who were the other two teams in the mix? I think Duval put it out. I'm pretty sure it was the Washington Commanders and the Detroit Lions. Like, the company he's keeping in that is pretty ugly. So I think it's very fair that just a guy that's very good at his job has to just figure out one little element to figure it out. And this is where I get back to the coaches. Kyle spends so much time he's balls deep right now. We're recording this 2:45 Tuesday. This is game plan day. He's watching Spagnuolo, Frank, and how to block Chris Jones, and what Justin Reed had, the bad steps he takes, and if McDuffie's going to play and the rookie Watson, that's great. But like football, ultimately, it's on his team and the execution, not what Kyle knows, right? Because I feel Kyle knows it. But does his team know it? Sometimes they don't. And sometimes he's not willing to be like, well, I know it, but I don't think they can do it. That's kind of what it feels like sometimes.
Well, what do you mean? I mean, because I do think when he doesn't push the ball, like in that fourth quarter, consistently push the ball, I know sometimes they throw it down the field, but as I said the other day, I think it all has to be set up like a chess match, right? These are not.
And I think that's the.
I think he thinks that his chances are better of winning a game when he plays it the way he plays it than if he opens it up specifically for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Did I drop the line, do it right longer? Did I say that the other day? Someone DM'd me yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, that Robert Saleh said in his press conference that one of their keys as a team moving forward and has been this year is do it right longer. And it's something that he got from Kyle. Basically, like, you just do it right longer, you're ultimately going to win. And like you said, like, I think Kyle just thinks the chess match, and it works. But I do think sometimes you got to throw the fucking chess match out of the window when you're down 14 points. Like, I'm all for playing Bobby Fischer and being a robot and knowing what's going on in a tie game against the Rams, or you held the Chiefs maybe if it's your tie game, and that's not the place. And I think that's the pushback from any level-headed fan. Like, bro, you kind of got to freewheel it, man.
Do it right longer really explains what we saw. Like the belief that
Robert Saleh said that that's something Kyle says a lot, and he's stolen it.
I don't know if his quarterback is capable of it, but that makes a lot of sense, right? If we just consistently do the same thing on every play, the other team will make a mistake. Well, when you're down 14, they don't have to make any mistakes. There's 10 minutes left in the game. They're not going to throw you a pick six, right? That would be a mistake. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Now, but I'll go back to, I do think the injuries, that's my theory. What do you think of the theory? Do you think it's a plausible theory that Kyle, he was not playing for 3 possessions. There was not enough time for 3 possessions. He was playing for 2 possessions. There was not a chance in hell he was going to get a 3rd possession, and he certainly was not going to go to overtime with his defense, as beat up as it is.
I would lean toward yours. He wanted no part of overtime, the team being beat up. I don't think he's cognitively thinking when he's down 2 scores, trying to score, like, I'm going to not get my guys injured and do a slow drive. Like, if he is, that to me is a little crazy. Because part of it is to be a little numb when you're in the game. I would get maybe if, like, all your quarterbacks have been knocked out, like Debo's playing quarterback or something.
Yeah. I do. Part of the theory that I believe, I think makes sense, and I'd love to ask him, is that he was trying to reduce the number of possessions. He was going to go for the lead and didn't want it landed at halftime to get the ball back. Like Kyle Whittingham the other day, for anyone that watched USC Utah, right? Kyle Whittingham went for 2 at the end of the game and took the lead.
Yeah.
With like 48 seconds left. He decided to go for 2 when that drive started. Before Utah scored a touchdown, when they got the ball, he told his offensive coordinator, have your 2-point play ready. Depending on the clock, we're going to go for 2. But if Utah had scored with a minute and a half left, he might not have gone for 2.
How much time was on the clock?
Ultimately, like under a minute, like 48 seconds.
Gotcha. And I asked you before we hopped, like we were bullshitting the other day. It was actually because the Niner game was at 10. If you thought he would have done that, if he was also undefeated and they were in the playoff mix, right, and not 4-2, not that wasn't going to be a huge win either way, but
yeah,
I think they had some playoff expectations that changed.
I think he was going to do it. And the reason I say that now, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but I just thought of it. When he did his post-game interview, one thing he said was, we knew if we lost a second game, we were going to be out of the conference championship race. Like 2 losses in the pack, like UCLA's unbeaten in the league, Oregon's unbeaten in the league, SC is unbeaten in the league at that moment in time.
Who was their second? Who was Utah's second loss?
Well, they don't have one. They lost to UCLA.
Oh, yeah.
He meant 2. So if they lost a second league game, it was going to be over.
Oh, because Florida's not a Pac-12 game.
Because Florida's not a league game, yeah. So right now they have a loss, SC has a loss, Oregon has a loss, Oregon does not, and UCLA does not.
Utah gets to control their own destiny.
Not exactly, because they
don't play Oregon.
Well, because they lost UCLA. So let me think about that.
But if Utah runs the table, I guess there could be several teams with one loss.
I'm just trying to think if UCLA loses, they don't control their own destiny. If Oregon beats, they actually might. Because they play Oregon.
Because it's not
you just need 2 teams, so it doesn't matter.
It's not by division anymore.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So yes.
So UCLA is in pretty good shape.
UCLA's in great shape. If they beat Oregon, they're in fantastic shape. Oregon still has to play Washington, Utah, and Oregon State. So a little tougher for them, I think. But Oregon's favored. Oregon's favored this week, I think, 7 points.
God, I guess it's in Eugene. Is that where College Game Day is going?
Yeah.
I guess the one thing that, like, I give a lot of credit to coaches, and maybe it's easy when you're a defensive coach to just be open-minded, because I think Belichick and Saban fall under this, is like they're truly not tied to a scheme. I mean, Belichick, right. They have a brand new game plan every week. Kyle says that, but it's not necessarily true. It's just what plays in his scheme are they going to run against that defense? Like, yeah, we might not do certain plays of the Shanahan scheme, but we're running the Shanahan scheme. It just depends which ones. Belichick's like, yeah, we won't do zone here, right? We'll do power. Saban's like, yeah, we'll just do hurry up all game against this team. And I heard Lane Kiffin say, like, we changed our offense, dramatically in my time with Alabama just because we kind of had to. The league was changing. We just adapted our scheme. And most people before that was like, Saban's, he's just tied to the old school pro style offense. And then now, like, what is Alabama's offense? Basically, it's fucking spread, let it rip. I mean, that's right. And to me, that's where Kyle, like, I don't ever want him to get rid of the quote unquote Shanahan offense. Like, it should always be a staple. It adds a physicality to what they do, but it does feel like, can he adapt other parts of offenses? Because every guy that's around him says, fucking guy he's like a savant. Like, obviously, his offense, no one knows it better, right? If Mike and him, it's impossible. And those guys all say it. But I do wonder if, like, would he ever be a pass first guy, even if he had, some great player? I have also had the thought, if it gets really ugly in Green Bay and, like, Rodgers is, I got to go. Now, I understand he signed a huge contract. I haven't even looked at it. Like, would there ever be a point that the Niners could pull off some crazy trade for Aaron Rodgers? Or would they just over their dead body? They would never
not do that, right? What if they just sent him to the Raiders and Devontae was like, shit?
I had someone DM me that went to the Packer game, diehard Packer fan, and was like, people are just kind of tired of just the go around. He's a great player. No one's arguing that, but it's just exhausting. And it's not all Rodgers' fault, but I do wonder,
it's funny, man.
2 years ago, the longer this goes, if they struggle, I do think people are like, listen, you're not going to get crushed. We understand it. Just fucking get 3 ones or something.
Yeah, I mean, all it takes, once you start losing a little bit, it's funny.
Would Kyle really want him?
Yeah.
And Aaron would probably want to come back, Again, it crossed my mind when I just saw the back and forth. Did you see the simple offense and Matt LaFleur's like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
I could just see things getting a little weird.
Then he'll do the classic, like, no, I wasn't. What are you talking about?
Now, but here's the thing. When you read the text, you're like, oh my God. When you watch it, he's laughing. I bet they talked about it, right? Because LaFleur's like, what does that even mean? And he's smiling. It's not. They clearly like each other. And Rodgers, to me, you're allowed to be right after you lose a devastating game. Like, I give you a pass being really mad, player and coach.
Yeah, I mean, the question is there like a deep-seated frustration? Although it seemed like he was fine with Devontae leaving, right? The fact that he's throwing to Randall Cobb all these years later again is probably a little frustrating. That it's Romeo Dubs and Christian Watkins, whatever.
But he's hurt.
Well, but I'm just saying, like, that is what he's got to work with.
Well, I've seen him already drop a couple lines like, if trades are available, I think Goot knows what we need to do. Basically saying, like, we need to trade for a wide receiver.
Robbie Anderson? The Ravens just signed Deshaun Jackson today.
Problem, this is, I mean, I kind of knew. What would you guess Rodgers' dead cap is in 23?
$48 million.
99.
How is that possible?
I mean, he signed for $150 million guaranteed.
99 for 1 year dead cap.
This year was 151. So,
oh wow. Brandon on the stream says Kawakami just talked to Harbaugh and said that Harbaugh will be at the Niners 10-year team reunion for 2012. Give that man a headset.
When's the 10-year reunion?
This year. Again, I did not know they were having a 10-year reunion, but this week, I mean, against the Chiefs, they're having a 10-year reunion.
And Jim Harbaugh's going to be there.
Harbaugh says he's going to be there. Is Alex will be there.
Does time just heal wounds?
Well, heal wounds. I mean, I think Jim is there specifically to create to be, Do you think Jim would miss this opportunity to twist the knife?
Fangio be there? He's got nothing going on.
Yeah, I feel like Fangio is secretly watching the Niners defense in the team facility every week.
Alden?
Good question.
The Cowboy?
Cowboy's got to be there.
Frank Staley.
Linebackers will be there.
Willis Bowman. Yeah, locks. Whitner's already there. Vernon, he's got you follow him on Instagram? The guy's fucking doing all sorts of shit. He's like acting.
Is he acting? I remember when he cried on ESPN. Remember that?
Developing different products. I mean, I think they were hoping for like a Robbie Anderson, Mike Singletary thing. It didn't quite work out that way.
I thought of Singletary the other day when when Robbie Anderson got sent off.
Yeah.
Steve Wilkes.
The difference is, the difference to me, and I saw a lot of that, like people doing Singletary GIFs.
Yeah.
Is Vernon was the 5th overall pick, was 6'3", ran a 4.2, and just was like, it was not working, but no one disputed. Like, I don't think we've ever seen this physical human being before. Robbie Anderson's like just a skinny, fast guy. I knew nothing about either side. I just took the Panther side. Like, Robbie, calm down, buddy.
1,000%. Alex Boone, probably. Yep, Alex Boone. Frank, did you say Frank?
Yeah, you seen pictures of Alex Boone? He weighs about 180 pounds. Balky's got to work, probably. I think they Jags play the Giants, I think.
Okay.
What if Balky showed?
Jim, I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Tom Sula?
Tom Sula? Got to be free right now, right?
Got to be. Jeep could bring his brother Paul.
Man, there's who else?
I've always fascinated.
Bill Dawson?
By is that the kid that Dilfer beat up? His son?
Yeah.
Always fascinated by head
Delaney?
coach. Just retired. Gets fired mid-season. Scott Frost, Chris, Rule. Their life, I mean, being a head coach is so crazy. So much time. But in a weird way, you're so rich, but you don't spend any money. I remember going to Andy's house for Thanksgiving. It's not like he lived for the amount of money he made. Like, he did not live in a month. He just lived in a normal community. In fairness, he wasn't at his house that often.
Right.
In his office. Like, can you imagine the shock to the system when they're like, hey, man, you're done. Like, that first week for Matt Rule, I don't care how, like, what the fuck do you do? Like, I would probably make an enormous purchase. You know what? I'm just going to buy something worth $250,000. Why? Because I can. I never spend any money.
Like an island, a boat?
I don't even know, but I would just do something kind of out of left field. You just don't spend any money. Your whole life is just football. You're making all this money, it just sits in the account.
Yeah.
You send your kids to private school or whatever, but it's not like.
I think you got to go like European vacation, hotel, $10,000 a night.
That's what I'm saying. You get out of the community immediately, so you don't have to like Scott Frost. Like, oh, I'm just at home. The Nebraska game's on.
Yeah. What are you gonna do on a Saturday? Mow the lawn?
Yeah, like go pick up food. Like, hey, coach, Paul. It's very awkward for everyone in town. That knows you. Your neighbor is kind of looking at you weird.
Ace said number 10, that wide receiver that fumbled the punt. Yep, Kyle Williams, right?
Son of the GM.
It's Kyle Williams, right?
Yeah. Remember his dad, Kenny?
The White Sox GM? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, John. Niner injuries. You sent me this. Actually, Barrows wrote a lot about it in The Athletic, and then attached in there was this tweet from Dr. Matt Provencher of Fox NFL. I didn't know they had an official doctor. but this is the banged up score, the BUS, and the Niners are in last place, which means they are the most banged up team in the NFL. And Barrows also wrote that according to Football Outsiders, the Niners have been in the top 10 in average games lost to injury, or whatever exactly they call that stat, adjusted games lost to injury. Niners have been in the top 10 every year for the last 10 years, and on the aggregate have lost the most games to injury. So the most injured team of the decade, the San Francisco 49ers. Congratulations. Pretty incredible. Because it has felt that. That's the thing. It has felt that way. I think so many times you're like, God, it feels like he always throws a pick. And you look, and it's just league average. It feels like they're always hurt, and in fact, they're hurt more than anybody else.
It feels like it really kicked in like that Harbaugh second to last year in the playoffs. I mean, they had a stretch where Bowman and Upati's legs were shattered in like, I don't know if this is accurate, but multiple series difference. It was like Navarro Bowman carted off the field, Upati ankle shattered. Next year, remember the disaster? You had Bowman or Willis retires because of a bad foot. Bowman can't come back that year. Borland comes out of nowhere, and it's just kind of perpetuated to Kyle. I mean, as Barrows wrote, they admitted it. I mean, they fired everyone after Kyle's second season because Kyle had so many injuries first 2 years. And they redid the strength and conditioning program, the training program, all under kind of one umbrella. And nothing has changed. Like, nothing has changed. So they admitted something was going on, yet they still have the same problem. You and I don't know. I would imagine they don't really know because they're, I'm sure, doing all the right things, right? Stretching programs, eating the right food, training the right way based on all these guys' physiological, numbers and tests. But for whatever reason, they get in these games and their guys drop like fucking flies. You can be like, even Barrows wrote, like, yeah, even Trent Williams, freaky deal. Someone just fell on him. It feels like more guys fall on their guys than other teams on top of just like legitimate, and part of it is they do sign hurt guys. Like Jason Verrett has been hurt multiple times. He was a hurt guy for the Chargers. As someone told me with the Chiefs, like, I was like, God, Charvarius this guy's a good corner, but he's hurt. It's like, is this growing? It's like, yeah, he had that with us. So I like him. And I mean, the Niners, I'm glad they signed him. I mean, JC Jackson, who remember everyone wanted, already got benched. This guy is clearly a really good player. Good team guy too. Feels like good energy. People just kind of just a winning. He's just easy, but he's hurt. It's just, and that's scary, right? Because his position is true. Him and Bosa are really explosive guys, and that injury is something that gives me great fucking concern.
Well, so does a Liz Frank. I put it in the same category as a groin. Like, when does that get better? Who the hell knows, right?
Who are you talking about?
Eric Armstead.
That's a problem.
Right.
Guy, when he's on the injury report, it's not just, it says ankle, foot. It's like it's multiple things. It's not just like Javon Kinlaw knee. It says Armstead, ankle, foot.
Eric says they're a physical football team with injury-prone players. Drewish guy says we play old school football and practice by new era player union standards. I mean, one thing you would say that's consistent from Shanahan to Harbaugh is they like the same type of guys. They like the Hufungas, who's, by the way, passed concussion protocol Sunday, but was back in the protocol on Tuesday, or I guess Monday. Sorry, this is Tuesday. So he came in with symptoms Monday and went back into the concussion protocol. And I saw a tweet before we started by Grant Cohn. I thought was a good insight. He said, you play really physical football, but you don't train really physical football. And so if your style is physical, but you're not prepared to play that way, then you're going to get hurt.
Ravens have had a bunch of injuries the last couple of years.
Ravens, I think, were the most injured team last year. They're pretty injured this year.
Eagles have battled it, and they've been a pretty physical team over the years.
One thing Barrows also wrote, as we're just putting all the pieces of this together, is that foot, ankle injuries, studies have shown are 16% more likely to happen on an artificial surface than on a real surface. I don't know, like McGlinchey, it said calf. That injury looked like a very hard fall on turf. Concussions happen from collisions with other people. They also happen with collisions with the ground when your head hits the ground, right? So
when we talked about Hufanga, it was the clavicle and concussions, correct?
When we talked about his college issues, yes. Concussions in college, yeah.
I do think it's very fair that the NFL in the 80s and 90s, because you're like, well, how did Parcells and Buddy Ryans and Ditka's and Walsh's, I mean, these games were war zones. Well, they practice with pads. Whenever you met someone who's over 50 that played in the NFL, they'd be like, yeah, we wore pads all season long. I remember hearing Edelman on a podcast last year. They full scrimmaged for years on their bye week in the playoffs because they always had it.
Wow.
Well, where did Bill learn his football? In the 70s and 80s. And my theory, another theory I have, have you noticed quarterback play? Like, the stat lines are not that crazy this year. Yeah. Like, there aren't just guys throwing for 400 yards left and right. They've never practiced less, ever.
That was kind of the point Brady made the other day, right? Is that football's bad because you don't spend any time together practicing?
Well, think about this, too. You know another theory I have?
No Toradol?
The amount of Bosa's, Kinlaw's, he's a bad example because he's injured, but just this year, Thibodeau, Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, the amount of defensive linemen who are coming in the league every single year is not being matched by the same offensive linemen. Look at the 49ers and the Rams, two of the better teams last year. They're starting guys at guard and center that you've never really – I mean, the Niners probably have the most famous one in Aaron Banks, the second-round pick, but other than that, it's Jake Brendel, it's Brunskill mixing in, it's Burford a pick. I mean, I don't even know the guys the Rams are rolling out, but their D tackles are all pretty sweet, you know? And they got multiple waves of
Niners, Niners got 3 lines of guys.
Like I would say most good teams in the NFL, their backup defensive linemen and the backup offensive linemen for NFL teams they don't parallel each other.
No.
And that gap is widening.
Well, and I think you'd argue there are backup defensive linemen that are better than starting offensive linemen.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Whatever backup means. Because
think about this. Drake Jackson isn't a starter. What is Drake Jackson's equivalent as an offensive lineman? Pretty good player, right?
Oh yeah, but I do think there is to be fair to offensive linemen, there's 5 of them, they play every snap. Defensive linemen, there's 9 of them and they rotate. Right?
But this gets back to the practice stuff. Part of being an offensive lineman, former one right here, is to me the physical practices is kind of how they develop their calluses, especially guards and centers. Like I would say Trent and the top tackles in this league, forever Tyron Smith and Jason Peters when he was younger. Those guys are like fucking Joel Embiid's and LeBron's. I mean, they are freaks. But the guards and centers, there's a timing aspect with it. There's just a physical comfort level with it. Nobody practices anymore. We talked about this with Kyle. His teams are full of war daddies. We've seen them play in the biggest games, go on the road. You go to practice, and it's no different probably than like a USC practice or an Arizona Cardinal practice. Yeah. It all kind of looks...
Just because 50 Cent's playing on the sound system doesn't mean you're having a tough physical practice.
Here's another thing. When preseason games start, right? So you get that first 2 weeks of training camp that's like late July up until like probably around August 10th, where you just basically got 2 straight weeks. But even that, you get every 4 days, you got to give them a day off. Then there are the 3 preseason games. So let's just say all the preseason games you play are on Saturday. Well, if I'm a team, and the Niners are kind of a bad example because they play their guys a little, but not much. Well, Friday is not, you don't practice on Friday. You might do a quote unquote walkthrough or do some like cardio stuff, but it's not a practice. Then Saturday, for the majority of the league, and even Kyle's guys, a lot of them do not play Saturday. And then Sunday is a mandatory league day off. So think once the preseason game starts, of a 7-day work week, you got 3 days off.
Not to mention the 4th week,
which is basically a bye week. I don't see a lot of people are complaining about the sport, and it started with, I mean, Brady was the player that spoke about it, but now you're starting to hear like even fans are like, God, this is a little shitty. You can't tell me it's not a direct result of the practice stuff. The history of the sport is all about practice, and now they barely even practice.
Yeah. You know what's funny is like I'm watching the Pac-12 every week as you are. The quarterback play from last year to this year is significantly up. Like the offenses are killing it right now. Much better.
But they got way better quarterbacks, right?
They got better quarterbacks and they got better coaches. They upgraded some key coach spots. But last year in the Pac-12, The leading passer was Keaton Slovis of USC, 239 yards a game. This year, he'd be 10th in the league in passing with the same season.
Who's one? Penix?
Michael Penix from Washington, yeah.
Who'd be two, Caleb?
I think it's Jaden DeLora at Arizona.
Now,
their defense, now you'd be like, well, their defenses aren't great, right? That could be a counter.
Yeah. But I see that my counter to them is like, how many NFL D linemen right now are in the Pac-12 chasing around these guys?
Sure, yeah.
Now, it's a good group.
But like the same was Rising last year.
Yeah. It's a lot more NFL players at quarterback, right?
There's some
Rising's
really good
an NFL guy. Penix an NFL guy.
I think Penix is.
Caleb's an NFL guy. Is DeLora an NFL guy?
I don't know. I'd take Penix on the 49ers, though. I'll tell you that. In like the third round.
So Kyle when he drafts him this fall.
I think he's got some because he can push the ball. Anyway.
Is he a senior?
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's like a.
Oh, yeah, because he got injured.
Might be a fifth year.
He's like, what's our man's name? He's out of sight, out of mind because he's been injured. Jake, yeah,
Hayner.
I did see his mom, who is a news anchor in the Bay Area, Julie Hayner. They were at the game, right, for Devontae's thing, and she had like an Instagram post of like 3 or 4 different, and it was Derek and Jake Hayner talking. And Jake has like, he doesn't have a boot on, but he has like some tape on, and he's, he's showing Derek, and Derek's pointing, and they were just talking ankle injuries.
Yeah.
Derek's like, when I shattered my ankle against the Colts.
It's like, did they make you ride in the front of the little cart that they drove you off on, or did they put you on the back like every other injury in the history of injuries? No, yeah, they put me in the back.
And if I remember correctly, Derek had to hop over to it. Remember, it didn't even come out to the middle. It was on the sideline.
One of the most embarrassing injury handlings that's ever been seen. John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about sleepnumber.com/ham. Right now, you go to sleepnumber.com/ham to discover special offers for a limited time at your local Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com/ham. No matter what you like. Maybe you like your bed a little softer, like John is a 40. That's his Sleep Number. I'm at a 55, a little bit firmer. One thing we know is that Sleep Number sleepers sleep better. Sleepers who use their 360 smart bed technology enjoy 28 minutes of more restful sleep per night. That's pretty fantastic.
Yep, guy. Here's the key. You want to sleep well? Here are little tricks of the trade. Take a warm shower before bed. Eat cooling foods. Drink lots of water. Use light cooling bedding for warm nights to add layers on cooler ones. Reassess your nighttime apparel. I'm a big believer, and this has worked for me for a long time. I can't sleep nude. I can't sleep with a shirt on. It's just basketball shorts. That's it. That's my night routine. Yeah. Basketball shorts.
I'm right there.
Can't even do boxer briefs. It's got to be basketball shorts. That's it.
Oh yeah.
I can do boxer briefs
over basketball shorts for me.
I prefer just basketball shorts.
I would say for several years I had some Team USA basketball shorts with the elastic pulled out of it, so they were really nice and loose. You know what I mean? Really nice and loose. The problem is if I had to get anything above a moderate shuffle, those things were falling off. So I finally retired them. Did you know that 8 out of 10 couples say that one of them sleeps too hot or too cold? Well, science tells us that regulating your sleep temperature leads to higher quality sleep. So Sleep Number has the solution. Discover the new Climate 360 smart bed, the only smart bed in the world that actively cools, warms, and effortlessly responds to both of you. The Climate 360 smart bed warms your feet to help you fall asleep faster, and it actively draws heat away from your body to help cool you so you stay asleep longer and deeper. So choose proven quality sleep with Sleep Number, because to be your best every day, you need proven quality sleep. Discover special offers now for limited time at your local Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com/ham.
Someone just forwarded me a tweet that said WD Sports, Omaha Productions, and Green 23 will debut a new all-access series, The Countdown, during pregame tonight. The premiere will feature Draymond Green's journey throughout the preseason, including Green's reaction to his practice altercation to the Warriors. So Draymond, who, listen, I like Draymond, and I really, really value players as a fan, as a gambler, and as just a lover of sport that are reliable in big games. But I do think, and I'm all for his podcast, it's had a lot of success. I could see if I'm the Warriors, like, bro, you got a podcast, and now you're doing some all-access series. Like, is it ever going to end?
Has he reacted on his podcast to the Jordan Poole punch yet?
I think the all 82, Slater, Marcus, or Tim, one of them kind of insinuated that I think part of the talk was like, let's just leave this one out of it.
Okay, but my point would be then
he hasn't done a podcast since.
But he's doing an all access reaction. I'd be like, well, wait a second. We have you do that on the podcast network, not on the all access. What is this thing? WD, where is it? Is it an
Omaha?
App?
So it's Peyton, it's Green 23.
Is it in an app? I think I might have seen something with like Gronk on Monday night where there's like some app.
Probably. Well, tonight they're gonna, I think, debut it before the game.
What I'm saying is,
how do you watch it?
I have to get in the app to watch it. Is that what?
Yeah, the Draymond Green app, Green 23. I'm just making that up.
You said WD Productions. Is that what you said?
Yeah, WD, WBD, Warner Brothers.
Oh, okay. Warner Brothers. That's pretty big. Warner Brothers Discovery. Okay, I've heard of them. I'll say this for him: he's not doing it on like
no,
some random production. Oh, here we go. Here's the video.
There's not much in the video. It's just he's not talking about Poole and that thing.
This is interesting. I wonder where this.
Do you think Draymond and Bill Belichick would have got along?
Pregame tonight, so maybe it is on. Is this game on ESPN or Turner? It's on Turner. I'm pretty sure it's on Turner tonight. TNT makes sense. Interesting. Okay, well, keep an eye out for that. If you've already,
I think that thing will go viral.
John, this is what Jeremy Fowler wrote about Christian McCaffrey. His restructured contract from March pushes his base salary to around the minimum. This means the team acquiring Christian McCaffrey would owe him a prorated version of $1.12 million this year. Not a lot. His contract becomes more complicated in 23 with a salary of $12 million, which is not guaranteed. That could be a problem for a team like Buffalo, who wants to keep its cap outlook clean next year due to many top player dollars on the payroll. If a team's looking for a one-year rental to catalyze a championship offense, McCaffrey might be the best bet. At the least, Buffalo and others would love to have McCaffrey's skill in their backfields. The Rams and 49ers have been implicated in McCaffrey's market too. Implicated. Listen, so he's not saying that. He's not saying I'm saying. He's just saying some are saying, basically.
To me, this is a much sexier social media topic than it is a real topic for a team to pull the trigger and make a trade for a guy who once was a fantastic player. And when he got drafted 8th, I even thought, like, that's pretty crazy and bold. The Panthers were right on that one. But his injuries, he is dramatically slower than he once was. He's really slow. You know, he can catch the ball. He's okay at running back. He's not a top 5 running back. And when you factor in his positional value, which I think it's safe to say is right there with like guards, you know, and you could say if you really needed a guard, you'd be more likely to trade like a 3rd round pick for an immediate starter than you would a running back. When do running backs get traded for a lot in modern day football anymore?
Well, modern day, I mean, I'm
talking like the last 5-6 years. I'm talking
Portis trade comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm talking like post like Twitter, you know, like 2013, 14 on.
Yeah.
Grigson did it. Trent Richardson for 1.
Oh, yeah. How could we forget that one? Yeah.
Now, the 49ers did draft 3 running backs in the last 2 years. 2 of them are still on the team. One guy, Ty Davis Price, I think made a cameo last game, so he's getting healthier. Elijah Mitchell's still a ways to go away, but I have no problem trading for him if I can get him for nothing. You know, 5th, 6th round pick. But if there are teams interested, that's not going to be the case. I would not be okay with trading for a running back. His name is sexier than the actual pick, or I mean the acquisition, if you're factoring in a top 90 pick. And here's the other thing. A lot like the Rams, the Niners don't have a first-round pick, so their second and third-round pick are pretty valuable.
Well, that's fine. You wouldn't give them a second or third-round pick anyway.
Yeah, but it's just supply demand. What if other people are interested, right?
Right, but I'm just saying the Niners would not give that would just now. Do they want to? Well, actually, before we get to that, here's the other thing: you are a beat up and injured team. Christian McCaffrey has a injury history. I just think on a fundamental level, it doesn't make sense.
No,
you know, there's one thing when we're like, oh, well, how come Talanoa Hufanga got hurt, or how come Nick Bosa got hurt, or how come Trent Williams got hurt. There's no how come Javon Kinlaw got hurt when it's the knee that you knew going in was going to potentially be a problem. And there's no, oh my gosh, we can't believe Christian McCaffrey got hurt, unfortunately. Because going in that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean the last 2 years, guys played 10 games.
I'm a Christian McCaffrey fan, but I've watched him a lot this year. We watched him a few weeks ago. Now the Niners, aren't necessarily looking for. You're not getting a game-changing running back at this point, right? He doesn't necessarily change the complexion of the game like he once did when he's on the field. But if you traded a sixth rounder and the finances were, if you're able to get out of them next year, fine. But I'd be more interested in your theory, which is driving the price up on the Rams.
Yeah, I think you would love to see them do something crazy. We'll give you a second and third in our following year's one for Brian Burns and Christian McCaffrey.
You would love to see Brian Burns up on that team,
and I don't think the Panthers, when you're selling your squad, you trade guys like Robbie Anderson and an injured, overpaid running back. You don't trade. It's like, could you get Derek Brown and Brian Burns? I don't know. They're two best players that have drafted high on their defensive line. You don't give away defensive linemen. The Niners were a joke for a while. They weren't just like, hey, anyone want the second-year guy, DeForest Buckner, or Eric Armstead could just be had. No, you do need a football team. I think a lot of people are like, fire sale. Yeah, they're not DJ Moore. No, they're going to keep 3 or 4 of their good players. I'll be stunned, guy, if they trade anything of value of their core 3 or 4 guys that every team in the league would want, wouldn't you?
To me, I'll repeat what I said the other day because I think it makes a lot of sense. Give myself credit on this one, even though it's really an obvious thing to say. It's October 18th, right? The trade deadline is in a couple of weeks, whatever. They're going to hire a new coach in 2 or 3 months. They may start, kind of doing backdoor kind of interviews, that kind of thing. But it's going to be a new season for the Panthers. In 2.5 months, it's going to be a new season for them, right? That's it. It's not 7 years away from winning. In 2.5 months, it's going to be a new season for them. That's it. So in 2.5 months, it'll be like, we got Brian Burns. We're going to get a veteran quarterback, or we're going to draft a guy. Our new coach has got a lot of momentum, smart guy. In 2.5 months, the Panthers are going to turn the page and just try to win next year. And in the NFL, you can just turn around and win next year. It can be done.
What's a good example this year is the Giants. I thought this, Giants, Bryce Young, they're going to suck. And now it's like, could the Giants get to 10-7 and be a wild card team? Do you think there's any doubt in that building? Like they plan on keep winning?
Yeah, no.
Like they wouldn't trade.
Who did you say they play this week?
The Jags.
Yeah.
Well, for example, I like Barrows. He's really good at his job. He did a couple realistic trade options, and it was just kind of random guys. And one name he's like would be a home run. I don't think it's necessarily going to happen. Was T.J. Hawkinson. And T.J. Hawkinson, because the Lions suck. Well, T.J. Hawkinson was a first-round pick for the Lions. The last 2 years, T.J. Hawkinson, 67 catches, 61 catches, and 10 touchdowns. He's good this year, guy. 20 catches, 3 touchdowns. To me, it makes no sense for the Lions, who eventually are going to try to win. They're literally trying to win right now. They just can't. But it's not this guy's fault. I'm just not in the business of trading good players in the NFL because this is not baseball where it's like, well, this guy's going to walk in free agency. No, this guy, if you're Lions, you want to keep T.J. Hawkinson, you'll just pay him $40 million this offseason, right? And keep him. He'll just be a member of your team. Why did the Niners win when Harbaugh showed up? Because they just kept re-signing good players, and he got here and he inherited stuff. The Lions, could Penei Sewell be had? No chance, right? And I'm not saying Barrow's saying that, but my point is that's not really the way the NFL works, right?
Right. There are not often fire sales.
No, because like you said, it is so easy with just the right move and the right coach to all of a sudden, best case scenario is day ball. But even like a middle of the road case is like the next year, all of a sudden you're 5-5 and you just drafted number 2 overall the previous year. You're like, God, we're competitive. It's fun. You know who likes it? Our fans, our TV ratings, like our owner.
Like the Broncos trade for Russell Wilson. The Seahawks didn't like him and thought he was washed up. That's what it took to trade him, right? If they liked him or didn't think he was washed up, he'd still be on the Seahawks. And they still got a killing. But they didn't like him and thought he was washed up.
Why did Juan Soto ultimately get traded?
Oh, because he was going to be too expensive. They didn't want to pay him.
Yeah. But the equivalent of Juan Soto, right? Like, he'd be a quarterback, but let's just use a positional player. Like, if Justin Jefferson or, Nick Bosa was on one of the worst teams in the league, under no circumstances would they trade that guy, right? During the season. Maybe in the offseason of a new coach and they were just completely starting it over. But in-season trades, to me, are just not like, oh, my God. It's usually like, yeah, Robbie Anderson got traded.
Yeah.
How many teams in the league when, hey, Robbie Anderson's on the block after that issue would have even traded for him?
I mean, it had to be count them on one hand, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. Remember, he had said some stuff over the years. I think he's got some opinions, which is good in podcast world. I don't think it's great if you're trying to run an NFL team.
I wonder if it was one of those like not even liked in the locker room, just an easy one for Steve Wilkes.
Yeah.
You can tell Fitter, I got you a 7th. You're welcome. Or a 6, whatever they got for him.
Yeah, I think he had a 6 this year and a 7th. I mean, it was nothing.
Yeah.
The Cardinals just don't really care about character.
Okay, you mentioned the list earlier. Justin Herbert's coaches to this point in his career. To this point in the NFL, he's had Anthony Lynn, who is the Niners running backs coach now, and a first-time head coach who Brandon Staley played to lose or played to tie. I don't know what he was doing on Monday night. A minute 51 left with 2 timeouts on his own 25 against a Broncos offense that was 3 of 9 passing for 46 yards in the second half. That's who Brandon Staley was trying to keep the ball away from, to make sure they didn't get some last-minute drive to win the game. 151. They didn't have 48 seconds, John. They had 2 minutes and 2 timeouts at their own 25. And unlike the 49ers, I thought it was more egregious than the Kyle Shanahan 8-minute drive, because unlike the 49ers, Justin Herbert can just pull plays out of his ass and has a rocket for an arm. In fact, on the first play, he should have been sacked, and he created a 0 gain play when it should have been a negative play.
Well, didn't he ultimately win him the game on that scramble to his left?
Yes.
Get him in field goal play? I mean, how many quarterback, could Jimmy Garoppolo dream of making that play?
Which, no, maybe dream. But I thought that was egregious. Well, somebody on Twitter pointed out in a video that they took from the game, when they were filming the stadium after the Chargers won, up in the box, look who it is. Sean Payton sitting up in the box. Now he's in LA a lot, working for Fox, but Sean Payton up in the box.
Football guys, you don't like football?
Just football guys. Whose box is probably a piece of investigating that needs to be done, but poor Justin Herbert, who is one of the best throwers, maybe the strongest arm in the league. And we thought his coach was overly aggressive, but then in weird spots isn't aggressive at all. Makes no sense.
I had the thought last night, and it's weird because Eli drawing the line in the sand ultimately led to Phillip Rivers, and he had a fantastic career. But I think when you really factor in Phillip Rivers' career, in a weird way, he underachieved. Like, I think for a large percentage of his career, if you put him in the right place, his teams are much better. Like, did he directly get impacted by shittier coaches? When you think about it, like, it crossed my mind, do you think those are 2 of the lowest paid coaches in the NFL? Hackett and Brandon Staley?
Yeah.
Probably, right? And Anthony Lynn obviously was, and Mike McCoy surely was as well. So it's like when
Hackett could be the lowest paid coach in the league, right?
Probably. Yeah. I'm factoring in his resume, his leverage. No one else was going to hire him. That, like, when Eli drew the line in the sand and I'm not playing for you, that was pretty nuts, but it turned out to be the right decision. And ultimately, Phillip Rivers who in a vacuum's a better player than Eli, so I think could overcome. And it's the weird thing is the Chargers, for being kind of this like disaster of an organization, always do have good players. Like even last night, like missing a bunch of injuries. Think how many stud players they still had out there. Mike Williams, Derwin James, Khalil Mack. Eckler is one of the better undrafted free agents in the NFL. I mean, he's been in the NFL a while now, but he's like a legitimate player, right? Even I think Telesco does a pretty good job. Gerald Everett, the dude from the Rams, just like that guy's just a solid NFL player. And it's always something. And to me, it's the owner that bleeds into the coach because they always have a cheap coach.
From Mike Riley to Marty Schottenheimer, and Marty had been Marty was a real NFL head coach. Norv Turner, who actually won double-digit games twice. Mike McCoy, Anthony Lynn. This is not a list of guys that get another job, right after this particular job. So, yeah, I think it's partly that. I think it's
the chances that they fire Brandon Staley at the end of this year and hire Sean Payton, I would say, would be pretty long.
Well, what's different between head coaches and players? Like head coaches, there's no salary cap. You can't tell a player, this is as much as we can pay you. You're not working with the same, credit card on coaches that you are with players. With coaches, you have to step up and pay coaches. Franchises who have money can pay more money to coaches, than franchises who don't.
Like, do you give Tepper any credit for just like pulling, like, this is not working, we got to go a separate way, I'll just buy you out now and we'll just figure it out later?
Yes, because it wasn't working. Because it's not like this was year 2, 4 games in a Matt Rule. Like, it was clear to everybody this was not working. So he wasn't even that trigger happy.
Year 2.5 of 7.
But year 3, I mean, we're in year 3.
In year 3, yeah.
It was clear to me. I mean,
they were going nowhere fast.
Yeah, so that's fine. Now Tepper might turn out to be a meddler in the end. We'll see. But, being a non-meddler who's cheap isn't necessarily better if you don't have the money for your franchise to succeed. And now they're in LA. They're playing in the Rams Stadium. So they get to, hang out at the penthouse and act like they're paying rent, but they're not. They didn't build it.
Well, it backfired ultimately because when the investigated the Redskins football team commanders, it led to John Gruden's transgressions. But Mark Davis deserved credit for being willing to take a huge swing. Now, you could argue why he was so infatuated with the individual, whatever, but his mindset was to get the star coach.
100%.
And that is the one thing that I think every person universally that follows this stuff, especially us on the West Coast that know a lot about the Spanos family, think like that's never going to happen. Where the move would clearly be to get rid of this skinny looking fucking punk in Brandon Staley and hire the guy at the game. Like, think how much credit. Now it would be a 5-year deal would cost Dean probably $90 million. I mean, Sean ain't cheap, but rightfully so. But that would be a scary combination.
Somebody in the chat said Fergus said he's paying $1 in rent. I mean, he can afford a better coach. Well, we are. You know what I thought last night watching that game? I don't know if you felt this way. Maybe it's just me. I was like, I feel like the Chargers have been kind of, for having Justin freaking Herbert on their team so far this season, they've just been kind of not the center of attention, and they should be the center of attention and one of the centers of attention. The Chargers. LA, cool uniforms, good players. Justin Herbert's a superstar. I mean,
not an easy watch.
How is it possible that they're not an easy watch with this guy? He throws, I think right now, I mean, Josh Allen's up there. I think Herbert's just my favorite guy to watch throw. He just throws BBs nonstop. And he's smart and he's tough and his team is talented. How are they? Do you agree? Did you feel last night? I felt last night watching the Chargers like, where have they been this year? That was my feeling when I flipped the game on. Was it?
Did play the Browns like the previous week?
Did you feel that way?
Well, I mean, I flipped it on when they were playing the Browns. I hate watching them, so I seek them out on the ticket. All right. I think they had back-to-back weeks where they were on like the 10 a.m. kickoff on the East Coast. It was part of it. I think you run into them more when they get into that stretch of just playing some of the divisional games and they're on the other window, right? It's like they're playing the Raiders, they're playing the Chiefs. They have just had the stretch Where the Broncos have been the opposite, right? We've been inundated with Hackett and Russell. It's like I feel like I fucking know everything about their team. Like I know I could break it all down. It's crazy. I've watched more Bronco football this year than I have in the last 5 combined. Do you feel that way?
I absolutely. They were the team I was thinking about when I thought about teams that I've seen too much of. Their schedule, they still play.
I think we still get some primetimers.
I think we've got, somebody said yesterday, we've got 4 primetime Broncos games still left.
Well, we've already blown a couple. Right.
But I think they might have had, like, isn't the max 6 or 7?
I think the max is 5. You can get flexed into a 6. So we've already got them on Monday night. We've got them on Thursday night, and we've got them on Monday night again. So we've already got them.
Oh, well, here's part of it. The Broncos in 2 weeks play the Jags 6:30 a.m., so they must be abroad.
So you're just in the lone window. Like, do you count that?
No, I don't count that. They've got a Sunday night Week 14 game.
What channel is that on?
ESPN Plus.
The abroad? Thank God. What is this fucking the Sony Open?
First round Thursday?
I mean, the ESPN Yeah, I don't think ESPN Plus ever had a game. I wonder.
I don't think so. At least
what was the story today? The Black Friday? Amazon's getting Black Friday?
Did you think it was something different when you saw the story?
Why? It's not this. It's in like 2 years, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I didn't really read it. I just saw the little headline.
No,
it can't be for this year.
Well, I guess Black Friday to Amazon, their big thing is Cyber Monday, right?
It's like a 3:00 game too. It's like a weird time.
3 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, is that what it is?
I thought it said 3 p.m. ET. So yeah, I don't.
So noon Friday game.
Are they just trying to throw this guy shit? Just like, hey man, we're gonna kick this fucking guy out of Washington. This is your gig.
Next day delivery.
Listen, it starts at Dan. We'll get you. If Dan said today, okay, you guys all hate me. You guys all fucking hate me.
Not what Dan said today. Dan has responded, and that's not what he said.
But let's just say hypothetically that is what he said. I'll sell this goddamn team, you assholes. What's the number?
7.
7?
The one thing you know is
they don't have a stadium.
It's going to go up. That is what you know. If I hold on to this team for 5, whatever the number is, if I hold on for another 5, what would you say the number is?
It's going to be big. It's
5.
a hard one. I think their stadium's really, really shitty.
Say 4. I know this. In
no,
5
no,
years,
it's more than the Broncos because their market, right?
Okay, 5 billion. Let's just say 5.
I would say 5.5.
5.5. Fine. Here's what I know. If it's worth 5.5 now, in 5 years it'll be worth more than 5.5. In 5 years after that, it'll be worth more than that. So if you guys want to let me die on the vine with a shitty stadium, fine. But I'm not losing money every year. So
did you see a Dan comment after Irsay talked? Or?
Yeah, Dan has released a statement. God damn it, stand by. I saw an Apple notes. Here we go.
I appreciate a good vindictive, like, you guys aren't shoving me around. Or to me, Irsay, I mean, is he the best spokesman? It's like, if Dan would have come out and just said a simple, like, are you talking about the guy that got a DUI with the pills and the cash in the back seat like 2 years ago? Is that the guy? Like, that's, to me, I would have tweeted something like that from the Commander's Twitter account, like at Jim Irsay. Weren't you the guy that got pulled over with all the cash and the pills and you couldn't pass the field sobriety test? Is that you or is that someone else?
Irsay's like, that is me. You got nothing on me. All my shit's out there. Dan Snyder, it is highly inappropriate, but not surprising, so a little shot, that Mr. Irsay opted to make statements publicly based on falsehoods in the media. It's unfortunate that Mr. Irsay decided to go public with his statement today while an investigation is in process, and the team has no opportunity to formally respond to allegations. The Commanders have... Yes.
Would you call him Mr. Irsay? Would you say Jim if you were Dan?
In some ways, both are passive aggressive.
I might have gone Jimmy.
Yeah, or Jimbo. Multiple nicknames. James. The Commanders have made remarkable progress over the past 2 years. We're confident that when he has an opportunity to see the actual evidence in the case, Mr. Irsay will no longer conclude that there is no reason for the Snyders to consider selling the franchise, period. And they won't, period. That's the best part. And they won't. Yeah, I'm sure once he sees the evidence of the case, Jim will take it all back. That's probably what's going to happen.
We ain't selling, motherfuckers.
And they won't. That's the one thing I do wonder, if you're another owner, you're like, Jim, Dan is like, he will stay out of spite. Like, he will stay out of spite. You're making it harder for us to get rid of him. He will stay out of spite.
Problem is, though, and listen, I've never known billionaires, but I've known some old, wealthier people. They do not get more open to your input as time gets on. They are more. I mean, Jim Irsay, some of these guys. I mean, even they would have to admit, I might only got under 5 years left. I Lee Trevino at the thing where they took the picture at the St. Andrews. He basically said, "I'm 80. When this comes back, let's call a spade. I ain't gonna be back." You know, like these guys. Jim Irsay knows. Like, how old would you guess Jim Irsay is? 77, 80?
I was gonna say like 81, but
I just think that I would. Yeah, he's younger than you think. Holy shit, wait, he's 63?
No. That can't be right. Irsay's 63?
Weather dude, man.
No. That can't be correct.
It doesn't seem right, but born 1959. Do the math.
Wow.
69, 79, 89, 99. Yeah.
109? What was your guess?
I was going to guess, 70, because Jerry's older than him. I was going to guess 75.
I guess wow.
63 feels pretty young.
He's got a lot of time left, man.
Yeah, he's got more time left.
Okay. Wow. Did you see that Vin Scully's house just went on the market? You know, Vin passed away. The great Vin Scully passed away.
Yeah.
His house is on the market for $15 million. Vin bought the house in 2009 for $12 million.
How much was Vin making?
Cash. He paid $12 million cash for the house in 2009,
which is after a housing bubble. So
Vin must have been making. I mean, yeah, he must have been making. He was clearly making multiple millions a year. He's been doing the job forever. So how many raises has he had?
You think he's a saver?
He might have been making he might have been making multiple millions in the early 90s. Think about it. Like, he would have been bigger in the 90s than he was even now, right? Like,
but he wasn't making like John Madden money, right?
No, but I just bet he'd been with the team since they moved, right? He'd been with the Dodgers since whatever, the 50s. So he'd just gotten multiple raises. And then when you're the radio guy, you're making the money. And you know what I mean? Like in the 80s, he's the highest paid guy when you're the radio guy. Then you do some TV in the early days. Everybody, like, that was probably getting a higher rating in the 90s than it was even getting later, right?
True.
Because it's just less competition. You're the Dodgers. I bet the radio money was through the roof for a long time.
You think it's diminished?
I think the radio, the radio money, I'm not saying his money ever went down. I'm just saying I bet his radio money was probably way higher than we think it was for a long time.
Well, he was one of the voices of the NFL in the 80s too, right?
That too. But I bet they were running ads on radio. They were fighting advertisers on radio off with a stick for 60 years.
Yeah.
Dodgers radio, I bet it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because I was the same reaction, like, how? And even still, I'm like, I would love to know. But what I love about it is he bought a $12 million house in 2009, which is, 12 years ago? Well, he was over 90 when he passed. So he bought this humongous house.
Do you know where?
Santa
Monica?
Some LA, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the same area that a bunch of people right now have a bunch of expensive real estate there. Like, I don't know if it's where Stafford has a house, but some famous athlete selling a $20 million house there right now.
Remember the Staffords bought that house, redid it, and then they couldn't flip it? Hidden Hills?
Well, I thought the Staffords bought a house and then bought the house next door from like Drake and then knocked it down and built a big house.
I got to be honest, Finn's house looks pretty sweet.
Pool, tennis court, Hidden Hills. Okay.
Do you think he used the tennis court?
I think he had a big family. Kids.
Wanted him around?
Yeah, just, hey guys, we're going to have a place.
It's crazy in real estate, right? If you buy a house, let's say you buy $1 million house, your house doubles. It's a really big deal, right? It goes to 2. You buy 1 and you sell it for 2. It's hard. Once you buy like $10 million house, you could sell it for 15 and it doesn't sound the same. Like it didn't double, but you actually made $5 million, right? So you made a ton of money. It doesn't have to actually double. In this case, it kind of is, but you actually just needed to go up like 30% and you make an astronomical amount of money. Whenever you see, like, I just saw like on Golf Digest Instagram, like Vijay Singh's estate in Hawaii for sale at $25 million.
Yeah, yeah.
And same type deal, right? He bought it in 2006 for, 7.5. Because when you buy something for 7 to 8 to 12, more than likely you're not going to sell it for 40, right? Because like you could, like one day you could sell the house that you're living in for 3x what you bought it on. But you buy something for $11 million, like you're never selling it for 33, more than likely. A lot, and these guys that go nuts, like Tiger or a Brady or a Jeter, like you get to like the $50 million, you're probably losing. It doesn't even matter. It's just about like, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want to do, right?
Right.
Which is probably the coolest way to do a house. But I would imagine relatively quickly after you do it, you realize I probably didn't need to do that. I don't ever.
I can only be in one of these rooms at a time.
The drag racing jet ski strip, we've only used once in 7 years, but goddamn, it was cool.
Speaking of Irsay, somebody said maybe the sauce aged him from his powerlifting days. I did see the video going around today. He used to like squat 500 pounds or something or more.
One thing I heard was one reason he really liked Grigson, they were lifting buddies.
That's cool.
So, just get in with the owners. Do you think, what will your take be if you see Joe Davis has purchased Vin Scully's house?
Be like, wow. I mean, he must have probably leave it to him. Forget about having him purchase it. I might send that link to Joe and ask him if he's if he's in.
What do you think? 7% interest rate is the recent rate. You put 20% down, your payment's pretty high on Scully's house.
Maybe if you take maybe you got his job and the house came with it. That would have been a nice. Even you still got to pay the tax though.
You know who was really rich? I remember when his estate, and reading about it once I watched some of his episodes, the Johnny Carson house went for like $15 million in like 2000.
Well, imagine
Johnny was making $30 million in the like 80s.
Yeah, think about like what these guys make now, but Johnny was killing like Johnny's ratings. These guys would murder for an eighth of Johnny's ratings, right? Johnny was probably doing he was probably doing college football ratings every night, maybe more, like championship.
Oh yeah,
like 18 million people watch the national title. Johnny was probably doing like national title games on fucking Tuesday nights.
Well, think about this. There wasn't a baseball, basketball, football, hockey. No one made more than Johnny Carson, right?
Right.
It's not like Wayne Gretzky or Magic signed for like $1 million a year for $25 million or, 25 a year or whatever his deal was.
So, okay. So not quite national title rankings, but definitely the best college football games in a weekend. Like Tennessee, Alabama was 11 million. That's a big ass game. Yeah, that's huge. Best will do like high ones, like 8, 9, that type of thing. 6. Johnny was doing 9 million on like when his show, not every night, but like good Johnny show would be 9 million. He averaged 4. So that's most of your college football games, your big games. You might get like 4 or 5 games a Saturday that do 4 million viewers.
Well, college football is the number 2 sport in America, right? The NFL does the highest ratings. They do the second.
Right. So, and all these games are national, unlike NFL games. So you get more national games.
So like Don Rickles would be his Tennessee, Alabama.
Yeah. So exactly. Don would come on. They'd do a 9. He was averaging 4. In 91, he averaged 6.5. Actually, sorry.
Was that his last year?
I think it was his last year. So that was probably big. He averaged his last week on air 19 million a night. So he did average a national championship a night for 5 days. So
how did people, and I guess I kind of did. I can't stay up that late anymore.
I don't understand. All of America must have been so tired.
My dad did. Dad loved him. My
11:30.
dad loved Saturday Night Live would come on at
Saturday.
True.
Letterman coming on at 11:30 at night. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
Well,
and now
Johnny would have been 10, probably, right?
But also you work 9 to 5. You go 9 o'clock, you'd be in at work. People now are like, on the Zoom by probably 7:45. I don't know.
That's true.
A little less pressure in the workforce, maybe. I don't know. But if you
Would
were
his numbers have been way higher if you just would have put Johnny at 9 instead of,
That's what remember that's what they tried to do with
Conan.
No, Jay. Remember they put Jay at 10 and it did not work.
But to me, it's different. Like, maybe you're right. That's set up. Like, do you want to watch that at like 8, 9 o'clock?
I don't know. People are watching their other.
I just can't stay up that late. I don't know how they did it.
I know. We were going to talk about Mac Jones, but Albert Breer says the relationship has gone sideways.
We talk about him tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get that on the next show. See what happens. Him and just something to chew on your brain. One thing Breer said was that Josh McDaniels and Mac were very close.
What is that? What are you insinuating there, Josh Duval?
I'm not insinuating anything. What did you call me?
Could you see a player-for-player trade this offseason? Well, Belichick wouldn't pivot off Zappy, huh?
No, well, yeah. I'd love people to start talking about it. Zappy started 2 games. Let's just pump the brakes on Bailey Zappy here for a second.
What is Bailey Zappy and Justin Fields Monday Night Football?
God.
Get ready. The Bears are getting a little too much love here in important games.
What is going on?
Christ. Is it CC Sabathia? No, a little skinnier.
All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Anything else to add?
Did you think Sirianni looked exhausted the other night?
I think he's got a serious Aaron Boone eye thing going where they just look like they did not sleep. Yeah. But I think that's just naturally kind of, he's got these deep set eyes. He's got a good look.
I do think there's a stress level at certain jobs that probably is pretty intense.
The thing with Sirianni is when you just look at his face, remember there used to be the quarterback thing, is his face symmetrical? Sirianni's thing is, to me, when you look at his face, he just looks fun. If you just Sirianni, no expression, looking straight ahead, I would look at him and think, I bet that guy's fun to hang out with.
You see Sirianni screaming at, I don't know if it's Cowboy or the other.
Yeah,
fuck you.
Yeah,
I don't know. Just high energy, gets pissed off.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Appreciate it. Later.